So Mushkin is getting back into the power supply game in a serious way. So this is the Joule 700W power supply, and that is Joule the unit of electricity rather than Joule the sparkly thing that goes on ladies and some men. Okay, so we have an 80 plus bronze rating on this particular power supply. It is a 700W unit, which makes it, I mean, I remember when a 700W unit was like, who needs that? That's ridiculous. 700 watts. Who could possibly ever need 700 watts? Well, now 700 watts is basically like a mid-range or sort of value performance range of wattage. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. Let's have a look at what are the overall features and ratings and everything else that we might possibly care about. So we've got a full range input with 0.99 active power factor correction. Okay, that's good. Dual 12 volt rails. Okay, we've got a high reliability thermal controlled nanotech bearing fan. That's good. Fan can be the difference between a power supply that I would use and a power supply I wouldn't use, regardless of how well it performs. Okay, efficiency up to 86%. Let's see, cables connector support. We'll have a look at that. Okay, we've got over current protection, over voltage protection, under voltage protection, short circuit protection, over power protection, and under load protection. So it's got all of the electrical safeguards that would be potentially needed in a bad situation. Alright, packaging is fairly simple on this particular power supply unit. It's kind of a no-nonsense approach. So we've got just a graphical sleeve that goes over a plain black box. And let's see how well packed the power supply is in here. So well, it's probably okay, I guess. So what I would probably do is I would suggest that having a little bit of foam around the power supply wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea, but it'll probably arrive okay. I mean, if you have any issues, Mushkin has legendary RMA support, so I'm sure they'll get you taken care of right away. So here's the power supply itself. Let's check the accessories first. Not a whole lot of accessories. As I mentioned, this is a value power supply. So we've got a couple of black cable ties. We have some silver screws. And we've also got a standard computer power cable. Now when it comes to power supplies, I'm a big fan of the KISS principle, that is, keep it simple, stupid. And the Mushkin Joule 700W definitely does that. So we've got a plain black finish on it. We've got a label that basically tells you the things you would potentially want to know about it. So that is how many amps on the respective rails. So you can see either of the 12 volt rails is capable of providing up to 26 amps. Okay, and that is for a total of, let me see, 12 volt combined output is up to 51 amps. So if you were to load up both of those, that is the maximum that you can put on the 12 volt rail on this power supply. So let's go ahead, flip this guy over. And so yeah, nothing on the other side, just your plain black power supply. Here is that nanotech fan that is apparently lubrication free, so it uses some kind of fancy pants nanotechnology in order to do that, and they claim up to 120,000 hours mean time between failure for the fan, so which means that and this is an unusual thing, it should actually outlast the power supply, which is rated at 100,000 hours mean time between failure. So in terms of pre-connected cables, this I like because it has only ones that you will absolutely need. It's got a 24-pin pre-connected, and it's got an 8-pin, well that is a 4+4 pin, and they slide together, unlike some of the cheaper ones. Well, I don't know if they're cheaper or more expensive, but I definitely like the slide together design better. So you see, you can separate them like this, but then you don't just clip them together, you actually slide one connector into the side of the other, so then you make your 8-pin connector that way, and it's much easier to keep them together when you're trying to reach somewhere and plug in your 8-pin. So everything else is modular, so it has a nearly fully modular design. So let's have a look at what we've got included in terms of modular cables. Looks like we've got one, what is this, EPS 12 volt, to motherboard, EPS 12 volt, yep. So we have an additional 8-pin. So if we wanted to plug that in, we could plug that in, and we would have, oh, that's interesting, no ground connections there. So I guess this is since this is a secondary 8-pin, the assumption is that pretty much no motherboards will actually require, Hold on just a minute. Ah, I get it. Okay, no. Okay, because it looks like these connectors are all standard. So, oh, this is neat. So you can actually plug this in wherever you want. And what it's doing is it's just splitting there. You can see there's an additional ground and an additional 12 volt there. It's just splitting them so that this end goes into the motherboard, which is fully populated, and this end, because it's only got so many 12 volts in the standard pinout that we're using on all of these outputs, then yeah, so it just splits them. Okay, so that's neat. Okay, so you've got an additional 8-pin. So you can plug in fancy pants motherboards like the Classified or like the Big Bang X Power from MSI that require multiple 8-pin connectors. Well, they don't require them, but they can accept them to provide more power to the CPU slot. Okay, we've got a couple PCI Express connectors. Okay, so these two go in much the same fashion wherever you please, and they each have a single cable that terminates in an 8-pin and a 6-pin PCI Express power connector. The 8-pin uses the same sliding design for the additional 2 pins, so you can take those off or put them on as you see fit. There we go, so put those back together. So you got 2 of those for up to 2 8-pin and 2 6-pin or 4 6-pin PCIe power connectors. Alright, next we have only one Molex cable. So this one plugs into the end. It's nice and long, actually very, very long. And then it has 4 Molex and 1 floppy connector. And they're all fairly nicely sleeved, actually. That's one of the things Mushkin's done well on this particular unit, is they're not using a cheapo, low-quality sleeving that's really easy to see through. Okay, and then finally, we've got some Sata cables. So each of these has 4 Sata connectors on them. And it looks like, yes, they are identical. So up to 8 Sata connectors can be attached to the Joule 700W power supply. So things Mushkin's done well are going to be the overall... Oh yeah, I haven't looked at the back. There you go. So this is typical of a Mushkin power supply. Instead of using that honeycomb shape that we typically see so often on other power supplies, they've got their crosshatch shape. Okay, we've got a power switch, we've got an input, and there is no voltage selection because it does accept any input voltage. So they've got nice sleeving on this thing. You've got lots and lots of modular cables. You can plug any of the cables into any of these connectors, which is really, really nice. The cables aren't super long, but so you might need an extension for your 8-pin if you're running it in a bottom-mounted case that's quite tall, but the 24-pin is fine and all the other ones look good. I wouldn't have minded seeing a couple more Molex connectors, but you can always use adapters or use extension cables to get more of those. And the reality of it is, in my personal system, I've only got a single thing connected via Molex, so I guess it's not that big of a deal anymore. Sata connectors are certainly more important. So thank you for checking out my unboxing of the Joule 700W power supply. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos.